We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Ave Maria Stella Dei Mater Alma Atque semper Virgo Felix Steli Porta.
We're moving on to a fourth chapter, which I've entitled The Narrow Gate, and here's the summary of where we are so far. Baptism drops the Spirit of the Holy One into our veins, but there's no fire where there's not matter to burn. You can't put a match to a piece of concrete. Asceticism makes us combustible. Changes the interior in such a way that we're able to burn with the fire of the Holy Spirit, and that fire is a mystical fire. That's what we want to try to sort out for today. What's the problem? How come this is an issue? It's because we don't do nature naturally anymore. There's my attempt to make a pun out of the two words. Lewis probably describes it as well as anybody in his Screwtape letters. You know that he released these letters one at a time over a series of weeks, and there's a story of a subscriber to that newspaper coming in and canceling his subscription because he thought that the letters didn't quite sound right to him. Well, no, they don't. They're upside down. This is Satan speaking, so everything's upside down. The enemy means God. The father below means Satan, and this is the Screwtape writing to his nephew Wormwood. And he says, never forget that when we are dealing with any pleasure, and its healthy, normal, and satisfying form, we are in a sense on the enemy's ground. I know we've won many a soul through pleasure. All the same, it is his invention, not ours. He made the pleasures, and all our research so far has not enabled us to produce even one. All we can do is to encourage human beings to take the pleasures which our enemy has produced at times or in ways or in degrees which he has forbidden. Remember Aristotle's definition of justice, doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason in the right way with the right measure. Well, sin is injustice, acting unjustly. And it's taking a pleasure in the wrong way at the wrong time for the wrong reason, etc. Screwtape continues. He's vulgar, Wormwood. He has a bourgeois mind. What a great sarcastic thing to say about God. God's bourgeois. He likes us to have pleasure. He's filled the world full of pleasures. There's no problem with money, sex, or beer. The problem is avarice, lust, and gluttony. There are things for humans to do all day long without us minding in the least. Sleeping, washing, eating, drinking, making love, playing, praying, working. Everything has to be twisted before it's any use to us. Poor devils, we fight under cruel disadvantage. Nothing is naturally on our side. Naturally on our side. We don't do creation justly anymore in the correct manner. That's why asceticism, that's why ascesis must enter in order to use the world correctly, to use material things properly. Here's a description of Satan's fall and then man's fall. Satan was an angel in the hierarchy whose task was to pass agape downward from heaven and Eucharistia upward from earth below. I wonder if I could draw this. Maybe I could. Here's the Trinity. You know it's a Trinity because there's three. And it extends itself in agape. And there's a return of Eucharistia, thanksgiving. What comes out of that is creation. Here's sin. He's the first anarchist. He's not living in hierarchy. He's living ahierarchical. And he begrudges latria, and he makes a screen against the spontaneous movement of response which was flowing up. There was creation, there's the fall, and here's redemption. The flow of Eucharistia is returned to creation by the second Adam. He becomes an antichrist, he becomes a tempter, he becomes a slanderer. These are all names for what it is that Lucifer has done. He should have taken God's love, agape, glory, beneficence, and passed it down, and then passed creation's thanksgiving and response and praise back up. And this he refuses to do. The fall is a liturgical affair. It's the abandonment of liturgy in the heavenly spheres with Satan first. Man's fall is the forfeiture of his liturgical career. A sentence of mine that I kind of enjoy playing around with. This this is a quotation from Louis Boyer. He says it better than I could. Man will yield when Satan takes his hostility against God and tries to bring others involved in it. Satan is called a man-hater by the tradition. He's malicious. He hates God, so naturally he hates wherever he finds an image of God. So all the human beings, their imago Dei, he hates. The potential redeemer of the earth will be the supreme conquest of the rebel spirit. Potential redeemer was the first Adam who was supposed to give this glory. Satan, incapable of repressing, will prove himself only too capable of seducing that liberty which he had felt surge up beneath him as a possible taking back by God of the empire that the demon had stolen from him. And this second drama is an extension of the first. The fall of man re-echoes the fall of Satan. So instead of the world in man being snatched away from the empire of the devil, it's now through man thrown into the bondage of sin and death. That's our situation, and it's not a good one, is it? We've taken the world wrongly. We have taken it in error. We have mistaken it. That's our mistake. There's a clarification required about sin and evil. And the clarification is that evil is not an equal and opposite power to God. Sorry, Star Wars fans, there's no equal and opposite power to God. Lewis puts it again precisely. The opposite of Satan would be at best the Archangel Michael, but not God. There is no anti-God. Satan is a creature. God is the creator. And Satan is a creature who has been twisted or warped, who has corrupted himself and fallen in pride. And that means that evil is not treated by the Christian tradition in a form of dualism, with the idea that you choose sometimes good and choose sometimes bad. The will is always directed towards the good, evil is a result of choosing the wrong thing as a good at the wrong time, for the wrong reason and the wrong amount. We're back to that justice question. Thomas thought about this at length in his big book on evil. I remember carrying this book around campus while I was reading it and hoping that nobody thought I was doing homework exercises. And he includes sentences like this. A number of them he quotes from Dionysius, the establisher, the founder of the hierarchy language. I've read that Thomas quotes Dionysius 1,600 times in the Summa alone. Well, here he is quoting him in his book on evil when he says, "Evil is not the direct object of the will. No one acts with evil as his goal. Nobody does it because it's evil, but it might be evil when he's done it. No one makes evil his object when performing an action." I think these are Dionysius. Here's Thomas in his more thoughtful, that's a euphemism, sense. "The act itself is not willed according as it is disordered, but according to something else, which, while the will is seeking it, it incurs the foresaid deordination which it would not will." Thank you, Thomas. That's exactly what the students want to know from their professors. "The act itself is not willed because it's disordered, insofar as it's disordered, but it will incur this disordination, this fault, which it wouldn't will, because it is directed towards the wrong, it's directed in the wrong way towards something." Thomas goes so far as to say sin couldn't even be in demons, and in the way that they would desire as good for themselves something evil. Evil is an absence, says Augustine when he finally thought his way out of the Manichaeans. Dark is the absence of light. Evil is the absence of something. It's the absence of a good. I have more to say about that, but I'm going to finish this chapter first because I want to try to keep some sense of time limit, but maybe I'll pick this up. We'll see. That's the problem. What's the cure? Purgation. Purged. You remember that everybody sees mysticism as consisting of these three steps: purgation, illumination, and union with God. And the purgative stage is dying in order to rise, being stripped in order to be clothed, overcoming pride to be overcome by God. An attempt on my part for a little pun. I hope you liked it. Here are two images of the purgative way. I take them from Origen. He borrows the first one out of Genesis 26:18, when the adversaries had overtaken Israel. When they left, they threw dirt into the wells so that the Israelites didn't have any clean water. And this is the image that Origen is using. Each one of our souls contains a well of living water. It has in it a buried image of God. Its well, in this well, it is this well that the hostile powers have blocked up with earth. They've thrown mud into the wells so that we can't drink from it. We can't drink from our imago Dei. But now our Isaac, who is Christ, the most often used Old Testament type of Jesus is, of course, Moses. Isaac comes in high at the list. Well, our Isaac has come, and let us welcome his coming and dig out our wells, clearing the earth from them, and then we'll find living water in them. Digging out our wells is the asceticism. Here he is using an image that comes out of Luke 15 and the woman searching for the coin. It was not outside but in her house that the woman who had lost her silver coin found it again. You didn't have to search the universe. You have to move down into your heart to find the lost coin. And if you light your lamp and make use of the illumination, he uses puns too, pretty good, of the Holy Spirit, you'll find the silver coin in you. It could not be seen in you as long as your house was dirty, full of refuse, rubbish, but rid by the word of God of that great pile of earth that was weighing you down, let the image of the heavenlies shine out in you now. There's a connection that I'm trying to get at between asceticism and mysticism. The heavenly light can shine out in you now, but what should I circle for this? Not until you get rid of the rubbish and the refuse inside. The asceticism permits mysticism. One more image, this one not from Origen, but from the Desert Fathers. Here's a house, chimney, here's a window, and what is the devil doing? He's like a hostile neighbor who throws dirt into your house. One shovelful after another. Every day, all your life long. The devil is like a mean neighbor who throws all the dirt he can find into your house. Well, it's your business to throw out whatever he throws in. If you don't do this, if you neglect to do this, your house will be so full of mud you won't even be able to open the door and get back inside. From the moment he begins to throw it in, put it out again, bit by bit, day by day. One battle with passions after another. And with Christ's help, your house will remain clean. Well, that's the image that I'd like to use in what follows here. It stirred up the thought that the asceticism makes space for mystery or mysticism. I don't have to do this whole thing again, but it's Evagrius' background. 3 faculties in a human being. They can desire, they can be stirred to feeling, and they can reason. And that's called the concupiscible faculty. This is called the irascible faculty. This is the intellective faculty. And Evagrius identifies 8 passions, or at least beginnings of the passion, a logismoi. 8 evil thoughts: gluttony, impurity, avarice, sadness, anger, acedia, vainglory, and pride. And so these are the 3 concupiscible, 3 irascible, 3 intellective. And they are the roots of the passions. Here's a picture from an iconographer of John Climacus' Ladder of Divine Ascent. Climacus, this is what he's called because he writes the book on the ladder, John the Ladder writer. We're trying to ascend, and we face this daily. So I'm using it to think for a minute about each of the passions and this set of the mysticism. Just a little pause so that I can tell this story. In the letters between Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, they both, and in a record of the conversations they have in meetings of the Inklings, they talked about how when they each wrote, things showed up that they hadn't planned to write. Lewis said, I began on this trail of thought, and then this appeared, and then that was it, and suddenly Aslan came bounding into the story, and the Chronicles of Narnia were off and running. Tolkien said, yes, when I was writing The Lord of the Rings, and the hobbits go to the public house, and there sitting in the corner is Strider, I was as surprised to see him as Frodo was. Well, I was writing this, and I suddenly began thinking about mystery as a visitor. Lady mystery coming, wanting to dwell. I don't know where she came from. I hadn't planned to write that. When I finished the chapter, I thought maybe I should go back and write the first ones over again and use this throughout. No. We'll just leave it as it is. But I'll see what you think of it. This is the Passion, and this is Evagrius' quick definition. And this is my application. Gluttony brings concern over scarcity. But John Climacus defines poverty as resignation from care. And the ascetic in the desert has resigned from care over things, but the ascetic in the city also has cares to resign from. Fear distresses, fear worries, fear dreads, and mystery cannot reside in a milieu of fear. And I suppose it's at that point that I started thinking of mystery as a lady who is coming, and will she be welcome? Will you invite her? Can she stand this muddy house? Anxieties allow no room for hesychasm, the quiet introspection. Damp wood impedes a spark. Fear impedes mystery. When the mind is focused on an unnamed fear, it has no capacity for a hopeful future, for a past and fertile memory, or for a present filled with charming delights. Fear distresses, fear worries, fear dreads, and mystery cannot reside in a milieu of fear. Anxieties allow no room for the silent contemplation that mystery intends to import when she comes to dwell in a soul. Gluttony pushes one's own needs forward, egotistically, blocking all else from view. It keeps the soul in disarray with plots and programs that are too noisy and which keep us from hearing mystery's still, small voice. What sort of block does the second passion, impurity, make upon us? Impurity, Evagrius defines as lust after bodies. It makes those who practice continence give up their virtue. Chastity defends purity even among those who have not taken a vow of continence. Chastity and continence are not the same. There is conjugal chastity too. Individuals should be endowed with the virtue of chastity according to their state of life, whether they're in a religious state of life, whether they're single, whether they're married. Chastity is a power, a strength. That's what virtue means, a power. John Paul II says, chastity is a spiritual energy capable of defending love from the perils of selfishness and aggressiveness. A true mystic's chastity is coupled with patience and chivalry. It gives, does not assimilate. It creates space between two persons where secret truths can be brought to bloom. Chastity does not judge by appearance, but it sees personal beauty. I mean the beauty of the person. I mean an interior beauty. Mystery can only put down her roots in purity. Oh, I see, I'm already starting to think of mystery as a person, which is why the scriptures are adamant that worship be attended by purification. Sin itself can be understood as an impurity, not only or even mainly of the sexual kind, but any adulteration of mind and will. Mystery only resides where there is purity, because she wants to guide the pure in heart to see God. Check Matthew 5:8. Purity is unmixed, undefiled, and innocent. Avarice, Evagrius defines as being frightened of old age, being unable to work, famine, sickness, and the shame of accepting the necessities of life from others. The avaricious person is always eager to procure one more advantage because he's never sure that he has enough. And that makes avarice a type of pride because he's ashamed not to be independent. The avaricious person thinks that moments of mystery cannot happen unless all conditions are met in advance. And thus he spends so much time arranging favorable conditions that he misses mystery as she walks by. I had a her and a she up here, and now I've gotten a capital M. She's appearing to me in the writing of this chapter. He misses mystery as she walks by, hand in hand with Christ. The avaricious person thinks he must buttress himself against famine, sickness, and poverty before he can be happy. But the demon of avarice has lied to him about this. Because mystery is spiritual, and she can sovereignly choose the timing of her visit. Her arrival does not depend upon us adequately staffing, training, or arranging our temporal goods. The avaricious man will limit himself to one child so he can afford 2 cars, not knowing that he need not first own a mansion in the suburbs before mystery will visit. She comes even to the poorest of Israel who are befriended by God. Sadness is defined as memories of the life that the monk has left when the labor of living in the desert is getting to him, and he thinks back of how well off he was in the city. So there's a sadness which cannot resonate to mystery's joyful nature and demeanor. Maximus says, sadness can produce anger, and angry people make a pitiable sight. Oh, that's a John Climacus quote. I just remembered where it comes from. Pitiable sight. Maybe you've seen someone in the grocery store just lose it, and it's kind of embarrassing to watch. It's a pitiable sight. Well, mystery's joyfulness is incompatible with a moping disposition. We're not talking about well-placed sadness, appropriate sadness, spiritual sadness. There are things you should be sad about in your existence. Fix them. But we're talking here about a brooding caused by a bruised ego. Sullenness over the denial of an ill-informed desire. Dejection over docility, not wanting to be taught. On occasions it accompanies anger, and on other occasions anger accompanies it. When the restrictions come from God, we get angry at Him. When the restrictions come from other persons, we get angry at them, even a loved one. And it's a sad spectacle to see someone angry at reality itself when natural restrictions limit the attainment of some fantastic desire, a desire that he fantasized. The saddened person cannot resonate to mystery's joyful nature and demeanor. The strings of a harp will not vibrate sympathetically to a tuning fork unless the strings are undamped. If you had your hand resting on those strings, the tuning fork would never get them to vibrate. Anger is a boiling and stirring up of wrath against one who has given injury or is thought to have done so. Doesn't even have to be the fact, but if you thought it, you can stir up this anger. And I say that mystery is driven away by this two-fisted pummeling of anger and sadness. One fist, other fist. Turbulent water cannot hold a reflection, an angry heart cannot hold the image of God. John Climacus says there's no greater obstacle to the Spirit, to the presence of the Spirit in us than anger. Wait a minute. No greater obstacle to the presence of the Holy Spirit in us than anger. We might want to check our anger. Well, if anger drives out the Holy Spirit, to whom will mystery pilot us? An angry spirit is unteachable, and so mystery will not waste her tutelage. Anger makes a person less likely to listen to reason, and Logos is the master of Lady Mystery. Oh, now the thing is developing. I guess I will have to go back and rewrite the book with this. Christ, the Logos, Lady Mystery, that's why she became feminine, and it's because of the wisdom, Sophia. It's always feminine in the tradition. Logos is the master of Lady Mystery. Anger isolates a person, while mystery is communal. Indignation refuses to extend pity, but mystery is concordant, hearts together. Indignation asserts rights, while mystery is humble. John Climacus explains how tenaciously entangled this passion is with our fallen nature when he hears anger say, I come from many sources, and I have more than one father. My mothers are vainglory, avarice, greed, and lust too. My father is named conceit. My daughters have names remembrance of wrongs, hate, hostility, and self-justification. That's quite a family, and they are not the kin of mystery. Mystery doesn't keep company with this. Acedia is called the noonday demon, makes the day seem like 50 hours long, produces sloth, resistance to doing one's spiritual duty. It's a listlessness born from a despondency over having to do one's duties. So I suggest acedia is a desire for something less strenuous, less toilsome, for a lesser housemate than mystery. It shares with the devil the expectation that everything good is boring. Don't most people have that idea? A goody two-shoes, that's not a compliment. It expects that good will be boring. Silly idea. Acedia is a dissipated soul, scattered and dispersed, one that will not do the labor required to minister to mystery. The mind flits like a sparrow tied with a string on its foot because the will has not housebroken the moods. Mystery requires a longer fascination than this state of mind wants to give her. The ascent to mystery requires more exertion than this soul will give her. The charm of mystery requires more courtesy than this boredom can give her. Have this passion in you. Let the demons throw this mud into your house and leave it on the floor, and mystery will avoid the house. 2 more. Are you getting depressed? 2 more, just 2 more. Vainglory means to desire the praise of men. Evagrius writes, this demon makes the monk desire the priesthood, or make him desire people to seek an audience with him. That makes us smile a little bit. Yeah, we all know religious types who are maybe a little vainglory, but we only smile so long as we're not looking in a mirror and apply the accusation to ourselves. Vanity, vainglory, vanity is comical in others. Typo there. But it stings to have it pointed out in ourselves. Vainglory grows the stronger as we practice the other virtues. That's an odd thing. Other virtues put down a vice, but when some virtues grow, it makes vainglory grow with it. It's a vice that feeds on virtues, making it especially dangerous. The man with a vainglorious mind goes back and forth like a shuttlecock between himself and what he thinks others are thinking about him. Therefore, he has no peace in his interior conversation. He cannot look on high because he's concerned with the opinion of those around him. He's more concerned with his current social rank than with any happiness that heaven may offer. He would prefer to have other people knocking at his door than to have mystery knock at his door, because he wonders, what could she possibly contribute to my glory? Why would I want to be spiritual? Why would I want to strive for this mystical life? Because what good would it do me? What glory would it give me? Instead, I'll take my glory from these other vain things in the world. Finally, pride is to deny God as your helper and to think that you are the cause of your virtuous actions. It took me a while to figure out why Evagrius made these 2 things, vainglory and pride. I thought they were the same thing. But vainglory wants honor from other human beings. Pride snatches credit from God. And pride denies the most essential feature of the liturgical mysticism that God offers, namely its gratuitousness, its grace. It's unearned. Well, it's earned by Christ, but it's unearned by us. Mystery. Lady Mystery is free, unforced, supererogatory, liberating. To the contrary, pride calculates the value of an action. Pride is born from philautia, philos, love, auto, self-love. Pride is born from self-love, and pride is so full of self-achievement that there's no space for grace. Mystery cannot remain when we have remade the cosmos in our own image, placing ourselves at the center, taking charge of our own salvation in every detail. The activity of God that puts mystery in motion is politely declined by the proud man. Thank you, God, but never mind, I'll take care of myself. There will be no mystery in hell, because the proud are so full of themselves that she will not be able to fit. There will be no mystery in hell, because we will not let her turn our incurvatus in se, being curved in upon ourselves, right side out again. Altogether, it's a form of worldliness, and worldliness and mysticism are at odds, in competition. I think I should work on a paper with definitions of worldliness. I've been picking them here and there. One I attribute to Louis Lallemant, but when I go back and search for it, I can't find it. So I've decided to take credit for it anyway myself. Worldliness is taking the world without reference to God. I refer myself to all of these things, and these things I refer to myself, but it's taking the world without any reference to God. I've just finished a couple books by Bishop Ullathorne, and I found his definitions of worldliness. Worldliness is a world without humility. Worldliness is drawing to the soul small things around her, not making any space for the great eternal things. Worldliness perverts every good gift of God to self-aggrandizement. That's the pride. Paul Seigneuri's homilies, another recent book. So none of this is in there. I guess I should do another edition. Once I had the amusing thought that it's a pretty good thing. You can get credit and honor for writing multiple books. Say I finish 3 books. But maybe if I wrote the same book, edited the same book 5 times, I should get credit for it. It's improving the one book. Well, anyway, if I were to go back and write this again, some of these recent books would now be included. Seigneuri says, worldliness aims at having more power in one's own heart than the power that God has. Worldliness promises pleasures, riches, honors, but only as long as you are here, and it promises them only for a time. It goes no further. Remember that eternity versus temporal, and remember that temporal means temporary. What's the temporal world? It's that which is temporary and is going to come to an end. Worldliness is judging things perversely. We are battling worldliness, and I tried to sit down and make a sentence to describe it. It's caused by haughty cleverness, closed empiricism, only what I can see with my senses, profaned secularism. There's a good secularism, but not if it's been profaned and is not sacred secularism. Private judgment, desecrated philosophy, coarsened nature, and short-sighted vision. I was happy with that sentence. Well, that's why Gregory the Great calls a person wicked for succumbing to worldliness. The wicked, while they neglect in their hearts to go to the things of eternity and don't observe that all things present are fleeting, they fix their hearts on the love of the present life as if there they could construct for themselves the foundation of a long abode. I can do this with a OneNote. I can't do it on a chalkboard. Foundation of a long abode, as if they could do that here. One may see great numbers of people minding temporal things alone, seeking after honors, open-mouthed after the encompassing of good things, and looking out for nothing after this life. So liturgical asceticism does not abandon the world. It's not disgusted at the world. It seeks to spiritualize the world, and it does so in the heart that's purified, so that we can see the world the way the world was meant to be seen. This beautiful world can arouse doxology and oblation and worship, but we must make our choice. You either do the world idolatrously or Eucharistically. Asceticism is the fee the old Adam must pay in order to enjoy communion with God. Can you describe that fee any more clearly? Yes, it's the mortification of the old Adam. So it's not a battle with material things, it's a battle with Satan, who conducts warfare against us with those material things. It's not the money, sex, and beer. It's the passions, the vices, the temptations. And how are we going to pass from this world into the eternity and the beatitude God has planned for us? It's the cross. If I could draw it, this would be like a big, this is a land, and this is a land, and this is a big abyss. It goes down, down, down. And laid across that ditch, not a ditch, but deeper than the Grand Canyon, laid across that Grand Canyon is the cross. That's the only way to get beyond this world into the world that God has planned for us. The sacraments of initiation lay the cross over the abyss from sin to sanctity. Sacraments of the service of communion are trained by self-renunciation, and the sacraments of healing depends upon a power that floods to us from the cross. Catherine of Siena has this nice image of describing the Eucharist being served on the table of the cross. I give it to you so that the next time you're at Mass and you see the altar, you see it as a table of the cross. Such souls glory in the shame of my only begotten Son, and so these also run to the table of the most holy cross, in love with my love, hungry for the food of souls. They want to be of service to their neighbors in pain and suffering, and to learn and preserve the virtues well bearing the marks of Christ in their bodies. Service to their neighbor, charity, preserve the virtues, bearing the marks of suffering with Christ in their bodies. Charles Journet had a nice phrasing. Christ will come in his glorious state, not in order to touch us with his glory, but to proclaim his death, to actualize, according to our intention, the unique act of redemption. Between his glory and our sin, he will interpose his bloody cross. We know that there is but a blanket of sacramental appearances which separate us from paradise, but he interposes his cross between himself and us. And this is the sentence: the more he presses us close to his heart, the more deeply the cross penetrates into our flesh to crucify us. Way back in the prologue of the book, I gave my proposed definition of liturgical mysticism, but I didn't do it in the video because I needed 4 chapters in order to get to where the definition appears in the book, and here it comes. The hinge on which it turns is the Greek word hypostasis, which comes from hypo, under, and stasis, to stand, hypostasis. In Latin, sub, under, stasis, to stand. Substance, hypostasis. Hypostasis is the hidden part of any object, the underlying state or reality of the thing. Well, in Hebrews 11, verse 1, they use that word about faith, and they say that faith is the hypostasis of things hoped for. G.L. Prestige has a book, a lexicon of the terms that the fathers use, and he pointed out that hypostasis was used to describe what goes to the bottom, right? It's the hypo, not hyper above, but hypo, sinks to the bottom. And the vintners referred to the sludge that accumulated at the bottom of the wine barrel as the hypostasis. There's the liquid wine and then a hypostasis. It settles at the bottom. That's my picture now. There are things hoped for in the barrel, and faith is a hypostasis. It settles at the bottom. And Benedict XVI describes this so well in one of his writings. Faith draws the future into the present. Here we are. And it draws the future into the present, so that it's no longer simply a not yet. The fact that this future exists changes the present. The present is touched by the future reality. So if I translate hypostasis and Benedict into Gregory the Great's terms, I can do it this way. Faith is the inward hypostasis, the settling, the establishment of the things hoped for that come from above and surpass the not yet by drawing the future into the present. Inward, above, what is to come. Those are the three sets of terms that Gregory lit up for me. So my definition of liturgical mysticism is it is the Trinitarian mystery mediated by sacramental liturgy. I can't leave the church out of this. Christ's high priesthood enacted in the church. It's a Trinitarian mystery mediated by a sacramental liturgy, hypostasized as personal liturgy. The liturgy you do in ritual, sacramental, ceremonial, Sunday morning form has to sink, hypostasize, become your substance. It has to sink down as a personal liturgy to anchor the substance of our lives. That hypostasis of Christ, culminated in the Paschal mystery, now flows crystal clear as a water of life from the throne of God and the Lamb, and it pools up in two places. First in the sacramental liturgy, and then it flows out of that. Oops, don't know why that's erasing on me. Ruined my dramatic point. First in the sacramental liturgy, and then it must flow from that into us. It settles into the invisible liturgy of our heart. The two liturgies are connected, which is why our mystical life depends upon a repetitive return to the altar of the Lord every 8th day.